Welcome. This is the session on family partnership, busting barriers to partnering with schools. Our colleagues and partners at the Michigan Alliance for Families surveyed families, parents, and caregivers about topics of interest. Michigan's MTSS Technical Assistance Center responded to the requests by creating sessions specifically designed for families. If you're joining us today as an educator, please put on your family hat. Think about your own children, grandchildren, nieces, or nephews for our session today. You can find our session materials for today at MiMTSSTAC.org. You can find professional learning as a tab. You can scroll down to session materials. You can then search busting barriers. And when you find busting barriers materials, they'll pop up and you'll find inside of those a PowerPoint, some guided notes to help reduce note-taking and help with capturing reflections or previewing the material and reviewing the material. You'll find some sentence frames to help practice some routines that might be helpful as you build and enhance family partnerships. You might want to grab scrap paper, pencil, and pen for our session today and find the guided notes. And as you do, jot down your answers to the following questions. What's one word for how you're feeling today? In 10 words or less, write a headline for your life right now as you think about being a family member, a parent, or caregiver. For example, Mom eats cold spaghetti while driving kids to hockey practice. Go ahead and finish those in your guided notes. I'd like to take a minute to just recognize the amazing work of folks around the country and some of our national partners, as well as the Michigan Department of Education and Michigan Alliance for Families. Our Creative Commons license allows us to share, but also protects our work. You can share or adapt the resources from our session today, but please give the MiMTSS Technical Assistance Center credit and show where any changes have been made. Our purpose today is to come together, welcome families of all configurations, cultures, languages into conversation about family partnership. We want to learn more about how to create positive and supportive family partnerships between home and school and continue to learn routines to help. A big idea today is that family partnerships improve outcomes for kids. And the more successful our family partnerships are, the more we can improve those outcomes. As we look at our session for today, we hope you'll be able to identify elements of effective family and school partnerships, reflect on relatable scenarios with successes and barriers, and identify and commit to next steps and actions to enhance and improve our family partnerships between home and school. Go ahead and grab your guided notes. And let's answer a few more questions. Which outcomes resonate with you today? 1, 2, or 3? In your guided notes, respond true or false to the following 2 sentences. I can tell the difference between myths and facts about family partnership, and I can share about routines that are proven to work. Here's our agenda for our session today. Let's talk about the why of family partnerships. But before we dive too deeply into that, let's take a look at a few activities. So the first one you'll also find in your guided notes. And on this activity, you can simply circle agree or disagree next to each of these bullets. So for the first one, I feel confident and competent with my skills in building trusting relationships, communicating clearly, collaborating equally, lifting up celebrations and strengths, lifting up barriers or issues, listening actively, and advocating for my child. As we continue on, continue to circle agree or disagree. I trust my child's teacher, an educator, or a team at school. I feel respected by staff. I receive frequent communication. My voice is heard. My cultural background is honored. Speaking multiple languages is viewed as a strength, and when I raise issues, they are resolved. Let's continue on in your guided notes and look at some myths and facts. So for each bullet that you see in your guided notes, just circle myth or fact. Family partnerships benefit kids. Family partnerships are part of a multi-tiered system of supports. or MTSS. Family partnerships can positively impact academic achievement. Trust is important for successful family partnerships, and communication is important for successful family partnerships. Collaboration is important for successful family partnerships. Talking to educators can be positive and sometimes stressful. Learning routines or frames can help in stressful situations. Families and educators need opportunities to develop their knowledge and skills. So, why is the knowledge of family partnerships important? Family partnerships help lift voices, family voice, caregiver voice, parent voice, as well as student or learner voice, supports families in what families need, and improves outcomes for kids. You might be wondering, okay, does family partnership connect to what's happening across Michigan and our goals? And the answer is yes. It connects to our top 10 and 10 goals, specifically around outcomes in literacy, graduation rates, etc. If you're curious, that could be Principle 5, Goals 2, 3, and 5. It's also connected to high leverage practices for students with IEPs. So when we think about those high leverage practices, family partnerships and good relationships between home and school are so important. And uplifting family voice and making decisions together becomes very important. So you can see some alignment there. You'll also see alignment to our MDE multi-tiered system of support practice profile. And in that profile, you'll see lots of links to leadership teams and communication with families, busting barriers or issues that are raised by families, looking at data, making decisions based on data, and even selecting, reviewing and selecting different curriculum or assessments, or even looking at assessment data and making some decisions or being involved with action plans or plans of action. So when you think about how connected this is, we can also see connected to literacy. And some schools use the Reading Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or we call this the RTFI. And you can see items directly connected to the RTFI. And one of them is that kids have successful literacy experiences across the school day, at home and at school. And family partnerships can help home and school work together to make that happen. You'll also see alignment with our new literacy laws. So let's talk about some of the elements of family partnership. When families are engaged in developing meaningful, equal partnerships, they become part of the school decision-making process. Schools can offer opportunities for input, development of abilities, and ownership over ideas. Family partnership meets the needs of families. When we engage in trusting family partnerships, we can improve outcomes for all students, including learners with IEPs and families. We support all kids through multi-tiered systems of supports. And when we say that, MTSS, we're really referring back to the infrastructure, the data, the systems, the practices that really help align resources and efforts by adults across the system at the school, the district, the ISD, the state, on behalf of kids. When we think about MTSS, we know that MTSS has an effect size that's large. And when we say effect size, what we mean is how strong can we expect the impact to be? The smaller it is or the larger it is. So a small would be a 0.2 or a 0.3. The closer to 1.0, the larger we could expect that impact to be. So when we talk about the impact of MTSS, we would expect it to have a strong impact because the effect size is 1.06 or over 1, which is that large effect size. So big idea is that families are integral. They're an integral part of the MTSS system. And when we engage in those trusting, positive family partnerships, when we have data-driven collaboration, effective two-way communication, proactively lift and resolve barriers between home and school, We can improve outcomes for all students, including learners with IEPs and their family. We want to lift family voice across our systems. We want to hear input, hear what's getting in the way, hear what's working, what the celebrations are, and we want to work to remove issues. When family voice is heard, educators, students, and systems all benefit. So take a minute and jot your why. Why is family and partnerships important for you? As you do that, go ahead and look at family partnership or family involvement, which is a resource within your Google folder or within your session materials for today. So when we think about family partnerships, we're trying to evolve or move from involvement of family to true partnership, where there's co-creation, where families take part in activities in the school and are engaged in developing meaningful engagement and part of the decision-making process. That families have opportunities to offer their input, develop abilities and skills, and have ownership over ideas. Family partnerships meet the needs expressed by families, and family involvement meets the needs identified by schools. To help us with this big idea, this is kind of a dual capacity building framework, both for families at home and for schools. Family-school partnership is built on mutual trust. It's linked to learning and development. It's asset-based, culturally responsive, and respectful. It's collaborative. It's interactive, where educators are empowered to connect family engagement to learning and development, engage families as co-creators, honor family-funded knowledge, and create welcoming cultures. So you are the experts on your children, and you know them better than anyone else. You know the experience of being a family in the school or the district, and you know how welcome you feel. You know what's working and what's not working. Lifting your voice helps with systems, educators, and kids. So take a look at what family partnership is and what family partnership is not. So we're moving from one-sided, blaming or disparaging, communicating in a one-directional way, lack of willingness to work together or resolve issues, or looking at culture and language differences as deficit, to equal partnership, shared responsibility, joint planning, based on trust, strengths, genuine respect, and collaboration, with frequent two-way communication, lifting and resolving issues for all, and focus on assets and strengths. So let's touch on those effect sizes again. So remember, effect sizes tell how strong, how likely is this to have an impact. So the closer to 1.0, the stronger the anticipated impact. So John Hattie, when looking at collaboration, found an effect size of 0.93, which is pretty close to 1. When we look at the family partnership description here, and we look at some advantages, we know that when strong family partnerships are in place, families report less stress, more quality of life, and more satisfaction with educational services. We know when we're using high leverage practices, when educators and families collaborate to set goals and work towards goals, children make gains. We know families with support are more able to learn, to use routines at home, and to help improve student outcomes. So let's take a look at trust, one of those elements of family partnership. When we trust someone, we know we can rely on them. So an example might be, I trust that my mom will pick me up from school on time. Or a non-example might be, when you're not honest, it decreases my trust in you or what you say. So let's think about those elements of trust. So benevolence is a big idea. Honesty, openness, reliability, and competence. We know benevolence kind of means something like presuming positive intent. Honesty means that we're valuing honesty and we're giving people true information. Openness means I'm open to listening, open to hearing what you have to say. Reliability means that my actions are consistent. I say what I do what I say. And then our competence means that we have the skills. So when we look at all of these, you can see that there are some really big ideas underneath this big idea of trust. So let's think about a couple of additional examples from life. So in your life, you may find that you have a situation where you're working with a doctor's office, and the doctor's office agrees to reduce your bill. But when you look at your bill for the next month, that reduced amount does not show up. As a result, that impacts the amount of trust you have for your doctor's office. Another example might be a work example. So a coworker agrees to cover a shift for you at work, but forgets and does not show up. That would impact your trust for that person. A school example might be your child's teacher says she'll call at 4:15, and she does. Another example might be your child's teacher informs you of positive strengths for your child and opportunities for improvement, and these are accurate. Another example might be, if you're concerned about your child and feel it's important to share information with the teacher, your child's teacher has an open door policy for families and caregivers, and you're able to go to the classroom and observe. You're able to meet with the teacher once kids leave for lunch or after school, and you feel welcome in the classroom and welcome to voice your concerns or your celebrations. Your teacher answers questions about how you can help at home, and you can observe the routine in the classroom or get support in implementing that routine. Let's look at a couple more examples of trust. So, a staff member says that they are going to schedule 21 intervention sessions and deliver those, and 21 sessions are actually delivered. A teacher has an open door policy for families and caregivers. Let's look at a couple non-examples. So the family has checked all of their email folders, and the documents they were told would arrive have not arrived in time to prepare for the meeting. A non-example might be that you're set to meet with one of the school teams in regard to your child's literacy assessment results and skills. You've had frustrations and challenges in learning to read and have asked to have all the meeting materials, including the agenda, sent to you a week before the meeting to ensure you have time to read and understand what's coming up so that you can fully participate and give voice to both the successes you are seeing with your child and the challenges in order to contribute to constructing goals for your child. However, despite your request, those documents have not arrived as of the day prior to the meeting. Let's take a minute and have you identify in your guided notes whether these are examples or not examples of trust. So, your family member has agreed to pick you up at the airport, but you've been waiting for hours. Circle example or non-example. The principal tells you materials will be available in multiple language on the website by Friday. You look at the website on Friday and the materials are not there. You've made a request for additional learning and practice on a routine used at school and at home to help with your confidence in using the routine. The team responds that, yes, we're happy to provide this opportunity and will extend this learning opportunity to other families as well. When sharing information about your child's progress, the team shares data in an easy to read way, explains the data, and shares the strengths and assets and areas of need. Take a minute and finish your examples and non-example circling, and then jot down what's contributed to trust between home and school for you. What's an example or non-example from your experience? So let's look at communication, which is another element. So when we think about communication, we're really thinking about sharing information. And ideally, this is happening both ways. So information is coming from home to school, as well as from school to home. It's frequent. And we know as families, who are we communicating with? What are we communicating? In what way will we receive communication and when? We also know how to lift barriers. So if there are issues or when we encounter issues, we know who to relay that information to. And we know how to access resources. We know what the MTSS system is within our school. What does that framework look like? And we know who to go to and who to talk to about accessing resources. So when we think about communication, let's jump back to that effect size idea again. So again, the closer to 1.0, the higher that effect size is. John Hattie talked about clear communication as having an effect size of 0.75, which is very close to getting to 1.0. So large effect size. Let's talk about the elements around communication. So we want communication to be open and honest. We want it to happen in the preferred manner for families. We want it to be accessible, which means that we're thinking about the language that the family speaks in the home. So we want language and communication to happen within your language. We want to make sure that it's happening frequently. Again, that we have some sense of who's communicating, when, about what, and in what way. We want it to be positive and constructive communication. So let's take a look at a couple of examples when we think about communication. So from a life example, let's say your boss calls and lets you know a month in advance that she needs you to pick up a few extra shifts next month. She gives you plenty of time to see what's available in terms of the different shifts and pick the ones that work best for you. Another example might be that your dentist's office sends emails and texts every 4 weeks, and then a week before your appointment, and then the day before your appointment, so that you know and you remember that you've got this appointment coming. Let's take a look at another example. So a simple way to talk about this is that someone is going to meetings at school. So they're obtaining information at the orientation or at parent-teacher conferences. Another way to think about this is asking questions. So you might ask things like, what are the school's literacy goals for children and for families? You might ask, how does the school partner with families when they develop language and literacy goal for students? You might ask, how can I support my child's language and literacy goals? You might ask, how does the teacher consistently respond to emails within 48 hours? So when you send an email, are you getting a response within 1 to 2 days? Another example might be that your child's teacher schedules check-ins with each family monthly. And maybe those happen on Zoom, maybe those happen on email, maybe those happen in person at the family home or at school. Another example is that your child's teacher keeps all parents informed of the class schedule, activities, and events for the week and sends out a newsletter the Friday before the week begins. So here are a couple additional examples and non-examples for communication. So if you look at the non-example, let's say the family asked for information in their preferred language for an upcoming meeting. Let's say the family received information in English. So when you think about the examples and non-examples for communication, just take a minute and take a look. Now let's take a minute and think about examples and non-examples and sort some of those. So you're asked to share about your child's preferences, interests, and passions. Is that an example or non-example? Go ahead and circle that in your guided notes. You're greeted warmly at the door and you receive feedback about your child's successes and strengths in literacy. Is that an example or non-example? Go ahead and circle that. You receive notes 3 weeks after a meeting takes place. You help out in your child's classroom. At a recent meeting, staff shared versions of handouts in multiple languages. The educators working with your child share observations about what your child knows and can do, assessment data and reading. You're invited to share information about your thoughts on your child's reading skills, progress, and supports. The educators working with your child ask for input, listen to understand your context and your values. You've asked to meet before school as your workday starts at 8:30, but meeting requests are written for 10 p.m. Sorry, 10 a.m. 10 p.m. would be pretty late. You ask, why does my child need to know and be able to do these particular things? You ask, how is reading taught and by whom? You ask, when does literacy instruction and intervention happen and for how long? You might ask, how many children are there that join that group? So take a minute and think about those examples and non-examples. Make sure you've circled those. And here's a tricky one. So the school leadership team shares a status report twice a year and provides an option for families to provide input on SMART goals. These are goals that are specific and measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound or timely, and equitable, as well as performance, progress toward goals, and effectiveness of interventions. So the leadership team is sharing a status report twice a year. Great. So thinking about this area of communication, what's contributed to good communication between home and school for you? Jot down an example or a non-example from your experience. Let's take a minute and talk about collaboration. So one of the big ideas is collaboration, which basically means working together, creating together, or we might call that co-creating. So let's collaborate on creating a communication plan that works for families. Let's collaborate on developing professional learning that families are asking for. Let's co-collaborate on an action plan based on our SMART goals. So you might hear about collaboration like that. It's voluntary. There's equal partnership. We're engaged in shared decision making, and we're working together toward a common goal. Thinking about those effect sizes again, remember that's as close to 1.0 is high and has a high likelihood of impact. So John Hattie also talked about collaboration effect sizes, and this one was 0.93, which is a high effect size. So collaboration can be powerful. Let's think about some examples and non-examples. When you think about collaboration, your child's teacher might say, let's find time to meet and discuss options for routines and decide together which is doable at home and at school. Your child's teacher might say, let's review a few tools and decide which tools are doable. You're invited to a team meeting, and at the meeting, the team reviews data together, asks for your input, and you co-create goals and action steps together. You're working shoulder to shoulder with the team to create literacy goals based on data for all kids at the school. And you work together as a team to develop a plan and next steps. You might even be someone who represents a group at school that might be underserved, or maybe our instruction or intervention is not working for. Go ahead and take a look at a couple of these as examples and non-examples. All right, let's take a minute and sort through a couple and have you circle on your guided notes. Is this an example or a non-example? So you and other families and educators work together at the PTA or PTO meetings, and you develop resources for families at school. You're at a meeting, but you're not asked about your thoughts or your experiences or your input. You and other families in the school are connected with other families across the district to collaborate on supporting each other around literacy needs. Families are invited to serve on committees that review school improvement plans. Go ahead and jot down in your guided notes whether you think those are examples or non-examples. And once you finish that, go ahead and write an example of collaboration that you've experienced. What's contributed to good collaboration between home and school for you? Maybe what's a non-example? As we move into scenarios, we'll take a minute to talk through a couple of different activities and frames. So today we'll practice using frames with our scenario. You might use these skills already in interaction with friends or colleagues. When we use frames, we can shift our focus to acknowledging the context and feelings of the other person in addition to our own. Using frames can help decrease tension, build relationships that are foundational to family partnerships, and helps with communication, which also helps with raising issues or barriers down the road. It helps to have language when feeling stressed or feeling defensive, so we can decrease our stress and increase our confidence when we have these frames to use. Remember, we use these frames because it takes everyone working together to have the impact that we want to see. It's not win or lose. So our first frame helps with labeling feelings that we might hear from the other person. So the frame reads, it sounds like you're feeling, We might be sensing stress, we might be sensing frustration, we might be sensing positive feelings like joy or happiness or excited. The big idea is that when we're listening to another person and we're listening actively and intently, we're listening for both what they say and for underneath what they say, how they might be feeling. And when we reflect this using this frame, it can validate that yes, we are listening and yes, we are hearing what they're saying. And it can help someone feel heard, which ultimately can help our relationship. Another frame that we use is what I hear you saying is. So when we say that, what we might add to that last piece is a summary of what we've heard or the big ideas. So what I'm hearing you say, or what I hear you saying is that you enjoy school and you look forward to opportunities to read, and you have a couple of books that you really are enjoying right now. So using that gives a frame of reference or a way to summarize what we're hearing someone else say. And this also lets people know that we're really listening. And if we've gotten something slightly wrong, they have an opportunity to come back and fill in the blanks and tell us more. When we want to find out more information, or when something might be said in a way that's general and we want to get more specific about that, we can always say, tell me more about. So instead of jumping in with our own agenda, with things that are important to us, we can really continue that dialogue and continuing listening to someone by saying, tell me more about, which gives them an opening to give additional details. You might have heard someone say something about a temper tantrum. So tell me more about what that looks like. Tell me what you more about what you mean when you say temper tantrum. So it's a way to get more information and really help making sure that we're seeing and we're hearing what's in the mind of the person who's speaking. So some people will say that these frames kind of feel automatic, or they feel kind of rote, or they feel mechanical. And it can feel that way in the beginning. But as you learn how to use these and as you try these out, they'll feel less and less like that. And you can add your own phrasing to help them feel more like you. The big idea is it takes the focus off of our own agenda and helps us really put the focus on the person that we're listening to. So, here in setting up our scenario for today, here's a little bit of information about Wen. Wen is a family member and she is parenting Wu Xuan, and she knows that he needs some help in reading. She struggles to read English. Her home language is Mandarin. She sometimes avoids coming to the school or getting homework help, and she first meets the school team, in March of the school year. Throughout the year, papers and emails have come to her in English, not in Mandarin. Elizabeth is the teacher, and she's also concerned about Ushan's reading, and she sends emails weekly, and she's not getting a response. It's March, and she's meeting the family. She teaches, she coaches track, she parents 3 kids herself, and she does need her prep hour to prepare for class. So she's not able to prepare at home, and she was not able to prepare an agenda or materials for the session today. So she enters the conversation with Wen by saying, it's time you showed up. Work with him at home or get him a tutor. So let's go ahead and meet Wen, Ushuan's mom.
Can we make this quick? I need to go to work in like 10 minutes. Okay, this is how we're gonna start. Those emails you sent, they're all in English. I don't even know what they're saying. I work 2 jobs. By the time I get home, it's like 9:30 at night. At that point, the only thing I can read is the back of a cereal box. Oh, wait, I can't read that either because it's all in English too. A tutor? Was what money? Do you know how expensive it is? The single mom with two jobs money?
So Elizabeth goes to a training and she learns more about active listening skills and she starts to reflect on how she's responding and she tries the meeting again. Welcome. We're so glad to see you. Thank you for taking time away from your responsibilities at work to join us today. Sounds like the meeting during the day is stressful and you're balancing multiple jobs. You're also balancing family and home. And I realize that materials in your home language would be much more helpful and make communication between us so much easier. I don't know Mandarin Chinese, but I'm very committed to figuring out ways that we can ensure that the emails are in Mandarin, consult with an interpreter if we need to, or just make sure you have materials that are in your home language so that you have what you need to understand what we're talking about and have the tools and resources at your fingertips in a way that you can understand. I appreciate so many strengths in your son, and I'm concerned about his language and reading skill. But tell me more about what's happening from your perspective. Throughout this second attempt, Elizabeth goes on to say things like, it sounds like meeting during the day is stressful because you're working multiple jobs and balancing family needs at the same time. It sounds like you're exhausted when you come home after working two jobs. What I hear you saying is having materials and information in Mandarin helps you know what's going on at school. Sounds like it's important for you to understand everything that's being said and shared about your son. What I hear you saying is you want to find ways to support your son. It sounds like you deeply value working with team members to ensure that he's set up for success. So let's go back to when. And now that Elizabeth's learned a little bit about some sentence frames that she can use to help de escalate the situation and to help keep the focus on not just what she's feeling, but what Wen's feeling as well, let's go back and hear how Wen responds.
Thank you for saying that. Honestly, it's not easy for me to be here during the day. I work two jobs. I had to switch shifts today to be here for this meeting. Also, I want to be honest too. Sometimes I feel like the school thinks something is wrong with Yushan, but at home he is curious. He's very creative. He asks a lot of questions. And so when I hear concerns about his reading, it makes me worried. Um, Also, I think a little defensive as a mom. About the emails, yes, if they could be in Mandarin Chinese, that would help a lot. And sometimes when I read the English messages, I'm not 100% sure if I understand everything, and I'm afraid to miss something important. What I'm seeing at home is Yuxuan doesn't like homework, especially reading homework. When he reads some words, when the sentences get longer and he gets frustrated, sometimes he guesses the word instead of sounding it out. And after working all day, honestly, I'm exhausted too. And so helping with homework might be hard. I do want to support him. I really do. I just don't always know the best way. So when you say that you see strengths and concerns, that makes sense to me. And I see that too. What I really need help is knowing what exactly he's struggling with, what it is the school is doing to help him, and how exactly I can realistically do at home to support him as well. And I want to work with you and not against you. So I just really would appreciate some guidance. Thank you.
To go back to our frames, based on what Wen just said, go ahead and create a frame of your own using your own words for "it sounds like you are feeling," or "what I hear you saying is," or "tell me more about." Go ahead and jot those into your guided notes. So you may have come up with things like, "it sounds like you're feeling uncomfortable meeting in person with not much time." You might have said something like, "it sounds like meeting with school staff is stressful." Or, "it sounds like you feel hurt when staff say something is wrong." You might have said, "it sounds like it's important to know what's going on at home and at school." Or you want to be able to get everything that's being said, and having your language, Mandarin, on emails or on resources is helpful in doing that. You want to find ways that work to support your child at home. You might also use frames like "tell me more." So you might say, "tell me more about what you mean when you say school says something's wrong." Or "tell me more what you mean when you say he doesn't like reading or doing homework. What do you see? What do you hear?" You might say something like, "tell me more about what would be helpful to you at this point." You might then go into talking about creating a plan for communicating moving forward, talking about the framework or supports that are available. You might talk about ways to lift issues like this early in the year, and ensuring any future communication is, in the home language, and talking about the opportunity to lift issues in family surveys or with emails. Go ahead and wrap up writing one of each if you can. And "it sounds like you're feeling," or "what I hear you saying is," or "tell me more about," and jot those in your guided notes. As we talk about preventing barriers, we want to acknowledge that family partnership is a whole system priority. It's interwoven throughout the system, all educators, teams, and families working together toward goals and outcomes for all kids. Also, we know that individuals have a history of experiences with school, with learning to read and reading, and there are added stressors when kids struggle or have difficulty learning to read or have an IEP. We know there are benefits of family partnership on outcomes for kids and families, like increased attendance, increased outcomes when working together to support children at home and school throughout the day. As you think about what you can contribute to preventing barriers, think about things like being welcoming and greeting each other, just like we greet kids at the door. Being welcoming and greeting and letting the person know that you are glad to see them and you want them to be there. Giving positive regard and respect, being open and honest, getting to know each other, being prepared, using those active listening frames, paraphrasing, clarifying, communicating regularly, and or even having a plan. Write a letter of introduction of your child and your family to educators at school. You can lift issues early, ensure access by ensuring that we're communicating in the family's language. Co-create a communication plan with how often and when, with who, about what we'll be communicating. We want to focus on working together to improve outcomes for all learners and strengthen our knowledge, both school and home. So, what can you do next? We can all work to lay a foundation for trusting relationships and two-way communication using those active listening skills by labeling feelings, paraphrasing, asking those clarifying questions, summarizing. If you are interested, you could talk to your school leadership team to see if they'd like to have a parent representative or a family representative. You can meet with the multidisciplinary team at your school if your child is receiving intervention services and supports. You can always provide your feedback, your input, your voice on surveys. You can make sure to identify positives and celebrations as well as lifting issues or barriers. You can help with designing or co-designing communication plans, supports, learning opportunities for families, and or participate in them. In our resources, we have one resource about how families can partner with schools on literacy development. Go ahead and hop back into family involvement or family partnerships and just take a look at the difference and where we're striving to be in terms of our family partnerships. You can share that document with others. You can share that with families or educators. Go ahead and record your additional ideas now that we're moving toward the end of our session about actions that you might take to move family partnership forward in your school. In addition to bringing out the best in your family resource, there are additional resources like Keep Connected, setting family goals together. The National Center on Improving Literacy document how families can partner with schools on literacy development. Resources from the National Center on Intensive Intervention and high leverage practices. So as we wrap up for today, we've identified elements of effective family and school partnership. We've reflected on relatable scenarios with successes and barriers. We've discussed next steps and actions to enhance and improve family partnership in your context. As you move forward, use those frames, try them out. Put those active listening frames to use in your next meeting. Use those to help build trust, communicate, collaborate. Look at the actions that you've identified and take those action steps. And remember, we're all in this together, so keep learning and keep growing. Thank you for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to the MiMTSS Technical Assistance Center and or to the Michigan Alliance for Families for more information.